What is blockchain? Blockchain is a digital ledger. As Clinton have said earlier on, blockchain is basically a digital ledger maintained and distributed among multiple interconnected computers called nodes. That is, it is a digital ledger. That is, blockchain is stores information. Let's look at in the physical world. In the physical world, we have ledger, a ledger that stores information. Now bringing it to the physical, let's now bring it to the digital space. Blockchain is basically a digital ledger that help us store information. Then after blockchain has stored this information, it will distribute this information that is stored across multiple computer coming together to form this network. That is, we have two important components of a blockchain. We have the and again, the way in which information are stored on the blockchain itself. Information are stored in what is called block. So this block contains information. Then This the blockchain stored information in a block, and each block they are linked together by the hash of the previous block. So and in which information in this block are distributed across various computer coming together to form this network. And the question is, why is it that this information are distributed across multiple computer? The basic so that no the number one reason is because so that there won't be one central authority that can have access to this information. There won't be one central authority that can manipulate any data on the blockchain. So that even if there will be a change, then all the network, all the computers, all the nodes that are coming together to form this network must agree on the change that will occur. So let's say if a single entity, a single node tries to change the state of try to change the current state of the blockchain that is on his or her node, the other people on this network they will get notified. And once the data that are on the node or on the computer of others, if it is compared to all these people and they see that the differences originate in that users that try to game the blockchain, then that user will automatically be chased out. So this is kind of, and the issues that blockchain tends to solve for us is issue of decentralization. You see that you see when Facebook can just decided to delete any post. Twitter can just it's just like this centralization of a thing. This centralization of a thing is has been what is causing a lot of centralization have been causing a lot of issue. Look at the likes of Facebook leaking data of user of customer. So you can just make it there are kind of news that can be posted on Facebook. There are some news that if government don't want to see, definitely they'll put it down. But on the blockchain, there's nothing like a central authority. All these data are distributed across all these data they are distributed across all the node that is forming a network. And let's not forget, what is a network? Network are formed when multiple network are formed when multiple computer come together, and each of these computer coming together to form a network are what are regarded as what? As node. Are you guys following me? So with what I have said, do we pick any information? Do we is there anything, can you like, are you satisfied? Do you have any question before we move further into the training? Okay. Okay, so one thing about blockchain is actually we have different type of blockchain. We have the public, we have the consortium, and we have the private blockchain. In this kind of when you talk about the public example of the blockchain are likes of what are likes of Ethereum and their likes of Bitcoin. So when we talk about blockchain, number one thing to note that if it's just one person that is forming a blockchain, it is no longer a blockchain. We can just regard it as a normal Web2 server whereby we can just store data and all that. But if for a blockchain to be formed, there must be a that is why I said a network. The blockchain technology is a the blockchain it is the blockchain technology, it is a ledger. In this ledger is stored information, and the information that is stored in it are distributed across computer that come together to form they are distributed across computer that form together to form this to form this network. So it is not possible for a single entity to number one to it is not possible for a single entity to say he or she owns the blockchain. The only thing that you can do is you can be a participant, you can be a node operator. That is, you can join the network yourself, you can join the network like the Ethereum network itself now. You can join the network and you will be a miner. I don't know if this answers your question, Ibrahim. Okay, okay. You're welcome. So, or is there anyone that wants to share more light on that? Okay. So now let's move further into the training. Let's move further into the training. We've looked at what blockchain is. We realize that blockchain is basically a ledger, a digital ledger that stored information, and the information are stored in block, and in which each block are linked together by an hash. And this information are distributed across various computer coming together to form the network. Then let's move further. Let's look at the structure of the blockchain. Now, we said the blockchain, sorry, let's look at the structure of the blockchain. If you look at it, this is a block. And don't forget that blockchain basically they stores their information in a block. If you see where my cursor is, this is a block, this is a block, this is a block. And each block is representing the current state of the blockchain itself. Let's say the can you see my cursor, right? You can follow my cursor. Can you see my cursor? Okay. This block here, the blockchain stored information in a block, and each block represents the state of the blockchain at a particular time. That is, it is telling us that this is the transaction. It's just like a ledger now. A ledger tell us purchase so and so goods at a particular time. I pay so amount of so exactly you can bring that idea into the blockchain space. The blockchain stored information in this block, and if you see each of these blockchain, they are linked together with a cryptographical hash. So and the block here, it is called Genesis block. That is Genesis block are the initial blocks of the blockchain. They are the initial block of the blockchain. That is the initial state of the blockchain. Why this one now? It is a block that have been created. This is another block created that is representing another state of the blockchain. Then the current state of the blockchain, as we are looking here now, it is this particular block. This is where the current state of the blockchain is stored. Then this data, this state, when a block have been added to the blockchain, then the information in that block are distributed across this network. So the information is then distributed across this network. Then if you see what is a network? We said a network it is when computer forms together the coming together of a computer of a computer is called a network, and each computer that is participating in this network they are regarded as node. So this is a node. The information is stored here, the information is stored here, the information is stored here, stored here, stored here, stored here. So now if Mr. A, let's say this particular computer now decided to change its content, let's say decided we want to manipulate the current state of the blockchain, then all the rest we all the all well, let's say if this computer here decided to change the state of the blockchain, then all the rest of the node, they will be able to identify the computer that want to act as scam, that want to game the network. So once they detect that computer, then such a node will be kicked out of the network, and the such a node will not be able to benefit, from the will not be able to mine and all that. So now we've looked at what is blockchain, and we've looked at the structure of a blockchain. Then let's now move further into what is a consensus mechanisms. So look at now how the a question should come to our mind is, how are these various nodes, how is it that they are able to have the same state despite them not knowing each other, despite them not they are not familiar with each other, they don't partake. So the only thing that just bring them together is that all of them, they just come together to form a network, so now it is this consensus mechanisms that helps in the updating of the state of the blockchain. So let's look at the definition. A consensus mechanism is a standardized way of how the blockchain node, the computer that run the blockchain and keep the record of all transaction reliably reach this agreement. The goal of a consensus mechanism is to facilitate the process of agreement among participants of a distributed data system to guarantee data consis ten cy. So consensus mechanism is basically the approach in which the state of the blockchain are being updated. So in this way, then we now have so various, I don't know, up to this point, do you understand the meaning of consensus mechanism, or should I come again before I move further? Okay, okay. So the blockchain, you know that various node we have various node on this blockchain, various computer coming together to form a particular node. Then the question that should come to our mind is, how what approach did the blockchain take in ensuring that all this network, all this node, they have the same data. Their data are sync. No one data is not different from each other. That is when we now come to consensus mechanism. So consensus mechanism is the standard way in which the state of the blockchain is being updated. The approach in which we take in updating the state of a blockchain. That is what consensus mechanism basically mean. Like the approach in which we take in updating the state of a blockchain. Let's say for example now, let's say okay, does this answer your question, Clinton? Okay. So let's move further. Consensus mechanism, we say that the approach in which various blockchain take in updating their state. Then when we look at consensus mechanisms, we have various consensus mechanisms like the Ethereum network, they use proof of work. So proof of work is basically when a transaction is sent to the blockchain, then a miner, the participant of the network, they are meant to solve a computational problem. So now let's go for example now. let's look at this diagram. Okay, before I proceed, I would also like to explain what is an hash. And hashing is basically passing a data into a function to generate a fixed length of random string. Let's say now, can you see my screen? Can we all see my screen? Okay. So now, let's say now, since all of us we have background in programming, hashing is basically passing a data into a function to generate a random string, a fixed length of random string. Let's look at now. If we pass this data into this box now, we see that it keep on generating a fixed length of random string. That is what hashing basically is. Even if we pass one data, what are we seeing here? We are still seeing a fixed length of random string. That is what hashing is. And blockchain utilize this to connect blocks together. So now let's now talk about this thing. It is from consensus mechanisms that will come to this hashing. So let's follow the step so that we understand to how everything come together to form the blockchain and how they work. So now let's look at block. Let's look at block. So now we have a block and we said that information are stored information are stored blockchain stored information in a block. Like now, this is an information. This is an information that is representing a block. Then let's say a user send transaction to a block. Do we understand what transaction mean? Okay. Transaction are basically performing action that causes change of the state of the blockchain. That is so that is what transaction basically mean. You are causing action that causes change in the state of the blockchain. Example of transaction is sending money from let's say sending money from A to B. So if you are sending money from A to B, you are basically changing the state of the blockchain, because the blockchain needs to now update the ledger and say okay, and the blockchain needs to update the ledger and say okay, so amount have been deducted from A that is sending money to B, and B have received an addition of so amount that is sent by A. So when this kind of transaction are sent, they are stored in a block. And once this action, don't forget that they want to update the state of a blockchain. And what do we say consensus mechanisms are? We say that consensus mechanisms are approaches that we take, that a particular blockchain takes in updating its state. And so we now say we have various consensus mechanisms. We have various consensus mechanisms. We have proof of work, we have proof of stake, and we have others. But the two prominent consensus mechanisms that we have are basically proof of work and proof of stake. So now, let's say for example, let's say the example of blockchain that make use of proof of work is basically Ethereum. So now let's say I send a transaction to the Ethereum network. Then this transaction are basically stored in a block. So once the transaction have been stored in a block, then we now need to the question now comes, who will update this? Who is go who will validate the transaction that are in this block? You know that we submitted the transaction to the blockchain first. So we submitted the transaction, that the transaction we basically want to perform is sending money from A to B. So the approach the approach of us choosing who to validate who the approach of us choosing who to mine this block, the person to validate this transaction, these are what is referred to as consensus mechanisms. And for us to determine who we and Ethereum now, for Ethereum to determine the miner the miner that will mine this block and the miner that will validate the transaction in the block, the approach that it takes is what it is called proof of work. So this proof of work is basically all the participants of a network When I mean all the participants of a network, that is the various node that come together to form a network. Let's go to the diagram we have here. All the all these grey boxes here, they are representing the various node, the various computer that come together to form a network. Are you following me? Okay. So there are various computers that come together to form a network, and it is either it is one of these blocks that is going to validate the transaction that is sent to the blockchain. And when I mean transaction sent to blockchain, transaction are um actions that causes change of state on the blockchain. So let's say you are interacting with a application that is built on a blockchain, and you are sending money from A, you are sending for money from person A to B. What you are basically saying now, let's say what you are basically, let's look at it in a real world scenario. Let's say you are interacting with a person that wants to send money to person A to B. What you are basically doing is you are performing a transaction. Transaction, we can view transaction in this aspect like, let's say in a bank, you are writing a check. You're writing a check. Okay, I want to okay. Okay, let's look at it now. Okay, a check. Let's say you want to give, so person B, let's say you want to give, we have two person, we have Kolade and we have Ayo. Let's say now you want to give Kolade money. You want to give Kolade money, you write check. So when you write check, once you write check, then you will now, let's say you now take that check to a bank. You taking that check to a bank, it means that you are what? You are submitting a transaction. Can you see what I'm saying from that angle? You submitting that check to the bank, it means you are submitting a transaction. It is when the bank have now seen, okay, this transaction request, that is when okay, now we have submitted a transaction. Then that is when the bank, let's now assume now bank, you have submitted a transaction, then that is when the bank will now performing the action of deducting the money from your account, then adding money to the other person's account. So those state changes, they have caused these changes in it has caused change in the state of your current account balance. Same thing comes to the blockchain network. If you are sending money to person from person A to person B, you are basically submitting a transaction to the blockchain. And for this transaction to be processed in the blockchain, you need the node, the miners. You need the miners to mine the block. After they've mined the block, then that is when they will now validate the transaction requests that are in the blockchain. It's just like now we are having a box that you are submitting a letter that you want to transfer money from Mr. Ayo to Mr. Oluwole. So now the miner are the one that now hold are the one that will now open this box. They will now read the letter. Okay o, Mr. Ayo want to send money from Mr. Kolawole to Mr. Olufumi. So when the miner have been able to solve the puzzle, like you know that we have a lot of people that are partaking in this network. These grey boxes are the various network. So the thing is, blockchain need to choose one person. You need to choose one person to handle this to handle this transaction, to validate this transaction. But how does the blockchain choose it? That is what we are calling consensus mechanism. I'm trying to explain this consensus mechanism because it is important for us to really know how the blockchain itself, how dey work. So now, so we now want to choose, okay, now you have submitted a request that you want to send money to from person A to person B. Then after you submitted the request, we now have various node, various computer that are partaking in this network. We want to choose one. So to now choose one, blockchain now came up with a idea of each computer will perform a series of computation, and any computer any computer that will be the first to get the value, to get the expected value, it will be that node. It will be that node that will validate the transaction. And the process of solving that computation, it is what is called mining. Let me take you back to this place now. If you see now, if you look at this block here now, you know we said information are stored, blockchain stored information in a block. This is a block. What you are seeing here now is a block, and we have the structure of a block, we have the block number, we have the nonce, we have the main data itself, and we have the hash. Then notice follow what I'm doing now. If there's a change, what happen? Can you do you see any virtual changes? Exactly. So now, if you see now, there's changes. The state of this block have been changed. Then the puzzle, if you see the previous, if check this, come to this hash section now. This hash section is 00000. Now we now want to mine. So if we change now, if we change it, it changes. So now, if so we've submitted a block that is containing this transaction. Then the puzzle now is we need to generate, and the puzzle now is any block that will generate an hash with four zeros. It is that any node that will be the first, that will any node that will be able to generate an hash with four zero will be the one to validate the transaction that is in this block. Let's say now we put, let's say a, let's say transfer transfer money transfer money from Mr. Ayo to Mrs. Mbumi. Now, this is what we are doing when we are sending a token to a person. This is what we are doing. We are transferring money from Mr. Ayo to Mr. Bumi. So when we first submit that transaction, this is what we are basically doing. So now the transaction has been submitted on blockchain. All we now need is, can you hear me? Okay. So now we talk about consensus mechanism, and we say that consensus mechanism and the standard in which various blockchain take in updating their state. And there are a lot of reasons for dis consensus mechanisms. The consensus mechanisms ensures that all transaction are performed, that ensures that the consensus mechanisms has a lot of advantage, and we will get there later on. But all I just want you to know that consensus mechanisms are various approach in which a blockchain take to update its state. And one thing you should know, that each block represent a state. Each block here represent a state of a blockchain at a particular time. And for this block to be updated, so it represent the state of the blockchain at a particular time. So, and we talked about the node and all that. But what we are still eating on is how is the change state. Sorry, I'm just emphasizing on this because it's important for you to understand this concept. So, how is the state of this blockchain updated? So, the state of the the process of choosing how the blockchain will be updated are what we regard as consensus mechanism. Then we now say that for so we now say that sending transaction to the blockchain is like sending requesting for sending transaction are basically actions that causes change in the state of a blockchain. And we said that when transaction is sent, it is like we passing, it is when I gave an example of a bank, that let's say Mr. A want to send money to Mr. B. It's like you take a letter to the bank, then the bank is the bank will be the miner that will validate that transaction and all that. But on the blockchain, we have various nodes that can really handle, that can validate this transaction, that can generate block to update the state of the blockchain. How do we choose them? How do we choose one of them? That is when the consensus mechanisms comes in. So now, let's say now when we submit a transaction to the blockchain, the transaction is stored in a block. So now the transaction is now there. The question we will now ask ourselves now, how do we choose the people? How do we choose the person that we the node, the miner that will validate this transaction? Then that is when the Bitcoin blockchain now applies the proof of work mechanisms. The proof of work mechanisms is the proof of work consensus mechanism is basically when all the node that are partaking in a network are made to perform a specific computation, and this computation it requires a huge amount of mo- it requires this computation it requires a huge amount of money. It is capital intensive to be able to perform this computation, because so to perform this computation, and any node that are able to give out the expected result of this computation, then they are now the one that are allowed to process the transaction that is inside this block. And in our case now, we are assuming that Mr. A is transferring money to Mr. B. So now, the process of bringing out the expected result from that computation, that is what we mean by mining. That is what mining means. The process of a node in a network able to solve the computation that is gi- able to solve the computation that is able to solve computation that is given by the blockchain, and any node that is able to bring out the expected result, then that is when we now regard them that is what is now regarded as mining. So now, for example, now we've submitted this transaction now, but this block, if you see now, the initially it was having a light, a pale green color, but once you input this, ah, Jesus, okay, and nobody said anything. Can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen now? So now we've inputted this data in the blockchain. So the question now, so we've submitted this transaction to the blockchain, and transaction is stored in a block. So what we now need to do now is to mine this transaction. And we said mining is the ability of a node performing a node that is participating in network. It is our ability, it is the ability to solve a puzzle that is provided to the blockchain, and any node that will be the first to solve this puzzle will be the one to allow to mine this will be the one that will be allowed to validate this block. The process of those node generating the expected result generating the expected result, that is what we regard as mining. And for you to generate the expected result, you need to perform a lot of computation that are energy it is na a lot of powerful computation, and dis computation are they are capital intensive and all that. So now let's now mine this transaction. We are mining the transaction. Can you see now? So now the puzzle that this particular blockchain is giving to us, that we need to generate what particular nonce number are we going to add to this data here, and we are going to add to the block number to give us an hash that will be starting with 40. That is the puzzle that this particular network has given to the node. So that is the particular puzzle that has given. If you change this value now, you will see that now the hash has changed, and this block is complaining that this is not the hash I want. Mine, give me the right answer. So and for this right answers for this right answers to be generated, the for this block to be mine now, we need an hash that will start with 40, and we need an hash that will start to 4 zeros. And the process of we need for this block to be mine, we need an hash that will start with 40, which is the puzzle that the blockchain has given to the node participating in this network. So now if we click mine now, observe the nonce, observe that nonce field, you realize that it will change. Can you see? Do you see that? Do you realize that the nonce value change? Okay. So um should I why you guys not talking now? So now can you see it now? How about now? How about now? Hello? Okay. So now, I told you now that for because we have different node in the network, and we actually need to choose one out of them to update the state of the blockchain. Then for us to for and each network, each blockchain has their approach. The approach in which the Bitcoin network take is called proof of work, and this proof of work is basically each node that is forming the network are meant to perform a particular challenge, and the challenge the and any of the node that is able to solve the challenge with the expected result, they will be the one to mine. And we now say that the process of being able to solve this puzzle is what is called mining. Then I now gave reference to what we have here, that basically now let's say we submitted a transaction. The transaction has been stored in this block, and the transaction is basically transfer money to Steven. So now we need to mine this block, and mining this block means we need to solve the puzzle. So then the puzzle now is what particular nonce value are we going to add to this data here, and are we going to add to this number here, that when we obtain their hash, the hash will be starting with 4 zeros. So now for us to now mine now, let's click on the mine. Still mining. Can you see? So the nonce that is required, that when added to this data and when once added to this one will give us a hash that is preceding with 40 is 1515119, and any node that is able to obtain this value will be the one to validate this transaction. Are we following? Are we following? Okay, so after this block has been mined, then the next thing now is to select the node. So we know what node to select, the node that is able to generate the value. Then the block will now be added to the blockchain. Then after the block has been added to the blockchain, the data that is in the and you know that each block represent the state of the blockchain at a particular time. So the data that is present in this block that is newly added to the blockchain will now be distributed across this network. That is, we can now say the blockchain is a decentralized ledger that store data in a block, and this block they are linked together by cryptographic hash, which is this hash that you are seeing here, that they are linked together by cryptographic hash, and they rely on a network to store those they rely on a network to store those values, so that they can do like a checkmate, if at any point there has been a change in any block, then the other network there will just be like an alarm that, oh, the state of the blockchain has been changed, oh, like there's a manipulation, oh. So any node that is responsible for that will automatically be kicked out. So like now for this block now we have mine. Then what we need to go next now is look at the blockchain. So this is how, sorry, okay, what's happening? It's already 2 o'clock. So now if you look at this now, look at this block. So now these are the various block that exist on this particular blockchain. This is the block number, this is the nonce, this is the so so and one thing is, why is this previous field, why is it having a 000? Can you tell me why? Hello, hello.